Hello and welcome to another episode. In this video, we take on one of the heavy hitters in the somewhat congested segment, the Audi Q6 e-tron and the family mid-size SUV electric segment. And I'm sure you're aware of VW's ID offering from small to medium large to large and the slightly larger than the large. Mercedes offering EQA, EQB, EQE SUV, BMW likewise with the iX1, iX2, iX3 and that funny looking X thing. And I won't even go into the boatload of electric SUVs that are arriving in shipping containers from the Far East. This, however, should rise straight to the top. I drove the Q4 e-tron last year and it was one of the best electric SUVs that I'd ever driven. So this, being its older brother, more premium and larger, should be better than the Q4, right? Let's find out. New cars of late don't necessarily automatically equate to better. You see, new cars are inundated with mandatory safety systems that hoot and holler at you, that distract you with different lights and different noises. If you take one hand off the wheel to pick your nose or to rearrange your crown jewels, for instance. You have to accept terms and conditions when you get in the car. Everything's touch sensitive and very expensive. However, unlike the weather we're experiencing shortly after our intro, Mr. Brightside over here, I'm here to tell you that it may not all be doom and gloom. Case in point, the new Audi Q6 e-tron. You don't need to worry about whether this is better than the model replaces because technically there has never been a Q6 e-tron. For me, from a design standpoint, it looks unmistakably like an Audi. Not just an electric Audi, but an Audi. And I'm fairly confident if a passerby asked me what this was and I said it was a 2 or 3 litre diesel Q6, I'd probably convince them. And that, my friends, is what I feel is going to be important to unbox here. Whether this is an EV, that's an Audi, or an Audi EV. It looks the part. Does it walk the part? Let's find out.
This is the Q6 S-Line e-tron Quattro finished off in Sonera Red. It has 2 motors producing a combined power output of 388 PS, which translates to 382 brake horsepower in old money. Torque is rated at 275 at the front and 580 at the rear. 0 to 62 miles an hour comes up in 5.9 seconds with a top speed of 130 miles an hour. This press car is equipped with the optional panoramic glass sunroof, a tow bar, storage and luggage compartment pack totaling 76,545 pounds on the road. Some of the other equipment consists of the heads-up display, heated steering wheel and seat for the 2 seats at the front, as well as the back, keyless entry and the clever LED headlights, to name a few. And the good news is that not only have Audi managed to squeeze in a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack, but have included a heat pump in the standard equipment too.
The good news continues because a top-of-the-range one of these is about the same as an entry-level EQE SUV from Mercedes, with the added benefit of this not looking like a bar of soap. This Q6 is a familiar approach to one of the most important classes for any manufacturer to master. Physically, this sits somewhere between the Q5 and the Q7, so this may quite possibly be the Goldilocks zone for the family SUV. Within this chassis lies a 94.9 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and Audi claim a range of 381 miles in this twin-motor Quattro model. Now, for a majority of us, anything around the 300-mile mark should be more than enough for our weekly commute. However, if you and the family want to venture out on a longer trek in the Q6, its ability to draw power at a rate of 270 kilowatts ensures that you can go from 10 to 80% charge in as little as 21 minutes. The car's 800-volt architecture is a great system to have, but a majority of us will be charging our cars at home via our wallbox chargers, or in the increasing number of places that these chargers are sprouting in, such as this pub car park, town centres, retail parks, Mother's Day gift sorted, and of course the car park of your local supermarket.
Whilst doing my weekly shop, I can make use of these chargers and the Q6's 11 kilowatt AC charging capability. Some, like the one in Tesco's, was free of charge, but others may need some sort of membership or an app, so please bear this in mind. Whether you need to do your weekly shop or get some furniture from IKEA, the Q6 has you covered. With the seat down, you have a whopping 1,529 litres of space, and with the seat up, you have a 526 litre boot, a tiny bit of storage under the floor, and 64 litres in the front, which is perfect for your charge cables.
A lot of the time, when we think about cars, we think about them while we're interacting with them. But the truth is, the majority of the time, they're inanimate, stationary objects that aren't doing much. Whilst I was out getting a few bits for my weekly shop, I was able to gain a few kilowatts of energy. Slow energy, but it was free energy. With more and more charge points being installed and popping up each and every day, why not use that time to recharge? With more competition, with more charge points, that's going to increase competition, and the more competition we have, the more likely it is to drive prices down. I, for the longest time, have been trying to get behind the wheel of a Q6, and it's because of the Q4 and how fond I was of that car, and naturally I just assumed that the Q6 would be that, if not better, because I generally do gravitate towards the larger SUVs. I like the Cayennes, I like the Range Rover Sports and cars of that ilk. But the Q6 isn't either one of those cars. It sits in a class just below. In terms of the drive, it has not the same but similar qualities to the Range Rover Sport that I drove, that it feels like a car than it does an SUV, and it has this quality where it's able to isolate you from the outside world in a really nice way. What I mean by that is torrential rain outside, I've got my heated steering wheel on, turn my heated seat on to low, that'll do. The noise outside is kept to a minimum, and the drive is very supple. As for the steering, it's very good at keeping everything at bay. None of the nasty cracks and potholes in the road are coming into the cabin, which again, in a family SUV, that's a very good quality to have. However, if you prefer a little bit more feel, then you might be left a little bit underwhelmed, because when you steer into the bends and into corners, you just have to trust that the wheels are doing exactly what you want of them. And although that is a quality that we often find in a different German manufacturer, let's say, it's not a bad quality to have. Oh, but it does ride the bumps beautifully. Now, something which I wouldn't typically admit out loud is the fact that it only has 20-inch rims. These arches could easily house 22, maybe 23-inch rims, but instead it has 285/45 section tyres, which means there is a lot of rubber. So if anyone at Audi is watching, please cover your ears. It's meant that I could dip in and out of potholes unintentionally and not chip my tooth. There is so much grip, there is just so much stability, and you just feel grounded whatever the weather. So that extra layer of assurance inspires confidence, and for me, that just makes it a very enjoyable SUV. All right, we're just approaching a speed sign which tells us that we can go up to 60 miles an hour. Here we go, 40, 50, 55, 58, 60. There's absolutely zero drama coming from the wheels. There's so much grip, so much torque, and the acceleration, as you would expect in an EV, instant. Naturally, with a bigger footprint than the Q4, the Q6 is going to be a little bit harder to maneuver and to place on the road, especially when you're driving it on tight and twisty corners, such as the one we're driving in today. But of course, the upshot to that extra bit of size, as we saw, is that it's hugely practical. Something which I feel Audi have done brilliantly is the regen braking. I have these paddle shifts behind the steering wheel, which would normally change gears in a combustion engine car, but this being an EV, of course, there is no gearbox. So instead, what they do is adjust the level of intensity when it comes to regenerative braking. Now, you'd assume the plus sign increases the intensity and the downshift, or the minus decreases it, but it's the exact opposite. And this is where I feel Audi have done very well. In its normal state, it acts and behaves in the same way a petrol or diesel would, in that you lift your foot off the accelerator and there's a natural tapered deceleration. So in the Q6, what you can do is, if you have a few hundred yards of empty road, or you're approaching a junction, or you're maybe even going downhill, you can press the downshift twice to go into maximum intensity, and it feels as if though you're engine braking, you're downshifting. When I realized that minus increases friction and the plus decreases it, it didn't make sense until I started driving. Then I was like, touche Audi. In terms of the interior of the Q6, it's business as usual. Nice materials, nice layout, and it's the same interior which we saw in the A5 video. As for the infotainment screen, it's very high in contrast, it's very sharp, and it's very responsive. Most of the menu is monochrome, so you're going to get black and white, so it makes it relatively easy to read with a little splash of color. The air conditioning unit lives in a permanent location at the bottom of the screen. When there's no one sitting on the passenger side, that side of the climate control is disabled automatically. You can of course adjust the temperature of the cabin, as well as your heated seats, as well as where you want the air to be flowing. So if, like me, your feet are always cold, you can just hit the button and let the car take care of all that for you. As for the steering wheel, useful buttons once again. You've got your volume on the right hand side, as well as your ability to fast forward or rewind your music. You've got a favorite button, which I just assigned the speed limit warning to, and you also have your heated steering wheel button. On the left hand side, this is your instrument cluster, so depending on how you want to view everything, whether you want a minimalist look or you want lots of information, such as where you are, your phone book, or the music that you're listening to. And of course you can adjust the various different information that you see on your heads up display. We've got a little pad down here which controls your headlights. They are automatic, as are your windscreen wipers. You also have your child lock buttons, so you can lock either side of the car using the buttons over here. You don't have to go and physically switch a button over in the doors. There's plenty of room in the back for your passengers, and the £1,525 option for the panoramic glass sunroof helps brighten up the cabin too. In terms of storage, I've got a little bit of storage under my armrest just here, and I've got 2 cup holders and a bit of storage down here, along with a wireless charge pad. I even have an ashtray. I've got 2 USB ports up here, 2 in the back, semi-decent space in the door bins, and I've got a little drawer here for some top secret bits. And of course, a reasonable size for the glove box. What's this? Oh, handy, very handy. Now let me tell you a little bit about the consumption using some quick maths. I've done 325 miles in this car since taking delivery. It had about 80% charge. I used it, I charged it some more, and I'm at 325 miles so far, and I've averaged 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour. Now if I times that by the number of usable energy on this car, so 94.9 kilowatt hours, that gives me a total range of 275 miles on a full charge in the real world. My last charging session cost me £43.97 for 77.85 kilowatt hours of energy, which equates to 56 pence per kilowatt hour. Now to put things into context, your home energy supplier is likely to be a lot cheaper than that. I found it as low as 7 pence per kilowatt hour. There's likely to be a caveat to that as to when and how you can charge it, etc. But if we take that as a guide price, the same session would have cost me £5.44 at home. So if you do about 1,000 miles a month, it's going to cost you about 20 quid. 20 quid a month. One of the questions which I asked at the beginning of this video was whether it's as good, if not better, than the Q4. Now, better is a very subjective word. If you're asking me whether this is better than a Q4, is bigger better for you? Do you need more? If you don't, probably not. What I really enjoyed about the Q4 was the overall package, its dimensions, its footprint, the price, the tech, the looks. I felt that all came together really, really well in the package that is the Q4. Whereas this is good in its own right for different reasons. And one of the other questions which I asked was whether this was an Audi EV or an EV, which is an Audi. Truth be told, I think it's leaning toward the latter. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but if I had a blindfold on and I drove this,
amongst its closest rivals, it'd be difficult to tell them apart. But in this class of car, in this segment, I think it's less of an issue. What's more important is whether the Q6 has captured the essence of an SUV. Is it practical? Is it spacious? Is it safe? Is it refined? Is it easy to drive? And I think if you're about to part with your hard-earned cash, that is the important question to ask. If you ask me, well, it certainly ticked a lot of those boxes.
That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you want to check out our last video on the Toyota Prius, I'll link that up here, as well as the Audi S3 just up here. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Nah, I'm not leaving the camera there, am I?